Often, if you start a car in first gear, it's going to stall, right? You need to be able to know what your own neutral is to be able to start a car and move it forward with any skill. And many of us are not in neutral when we're going through life, which means that we're betraying ourselves, maybe through facial tics. So it's like you have to be present in yourself in order to have presence for others. So you have to have a presence in your own body. It has to be a level of calm in order that your energy can resonate outwards as being someone it's safe to be with. I come back to what I said about sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, do I like what I see? And you go, well, actually, for me, looking in the mirror and going, actually, what I'm presenting to the world isn't authentically me.
Right. Yeah,
But actually, so why the heck am I not doing that? So I'm not talking about demanding money in the room, but making what I call a soft offer, which is getting people on the phone to you one-to-one, where you can really quickly move to exchange of money.
Welcome, Team ET. I'm happy to be here with you once more for this week's podcast episode of the ET Project. Today, I'm sure you're going to find we're in for a treat as we connect with Mr. David Roylance, who's sitting over in Old Blighty, otherwise known for the uninitiated as England. And as you will have heard me introduce, David has a really rich history in acting, and I'm sure if we encourage him sufficiently, he's probably going to share a little bit of that period, as well as introduce what he's currently up to with his training and coaching practices, of course. What I would say about David is that he's able to call on that rich experience from the acting, from the drama and everything that he's practiced for so long, and bring that into his business practices with his clients. And I think we'll hear more about that. One of the things that I'm keen to talk about, David, is I read about your 3 pillars of impact: posture, voice,
Yeah.
and energy. And
Yes.
if we get the opportunity, I'd like to come back to that a little bit later and dig
Please,
into
I love talking about it, so I can share, and I say that because it's always the beginning of any client relationship. We always have to start there because those are the 3 pillars of deciding whether you've got some kind of presence or you've got some kind of charisma or
Right.
impact, as you say.
Yeah. I have a feeling that we're going to have a bit of fun, and this is probably going to be a very insightful conversation. So, David, welcome to the ET Project, first of all.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here and share with your audience whatever it is that we are going to talk about
Yeah,
today.
we will talk wide and deep, I hope. So let's see where we go with the conversation.
Yeah.
In preparation for today, I had to go hunting and dig out some of my high school English drama books. Can you believe?
Oh,
So,
excellent. What did you find? Tell me, where did you look?
wait for it. I came across Romeo and Juliet, and
Ah,
in a moment of weakness, which I hope I won't come to regret later, I thought I would share from one of my favorite scenes, which is Act Two, scene 2, I think, where Romeo is talking to Juliet on the balcony, or the
yeah.
infamous balcony that's not actually in Shakespeare's original script, as I understood. So very interesting. All right, so please, after I finish, feel free to critique, give us some advice. So here we
Yes,
go.
yeah.
It's very short.
You're calling on me as a theatre director, and
Absolutely, absolutely. This is my moment in the sun, or moment to shine, right? So it's very short though. I'm not going to read much of it. So, but soft. What light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun.
lovely, beautifully done. Now, so the the beauty of Shakespeare is I still think of William Shakespeare as being the writer who understood the entirety of the experience of being human,
Mm.
was able to put it down in his plays, in his sonnets, and the study in particular of verse and the way that he uses verse and uses normal talking in different scenes. It's all about the heart.
Right.
It's all about the heartbeat, because the iambic pentameter, the five beats of each line, is linked to the heartbeat, in order that when we use verse, we reveal our emotions because we're connected to our heart. And when we use normal text, we're not. We're much more intellectually based. And so, funnily enough, when we get involved in what we're saying, when we get passionate about what we're saying, we're more likely to be connected to our heart, and therefore we are more likely to almost accidentally speak in iambic pentameter. Would you like a cup of tea? Could, it's an iambic pentameter sentence. So and so it's boom 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 boom. That's iambic pentameter. So, but soft, what light through window breaks.
So in other words,
Right?
you're trying to be very gentle to me and say, don't give up my day job.
I'm saying when we're connected to the heart, we are passionate, then something energetically comes across. So it's almost like Shakespeare's directing the play from the choices of this bit's in verse and this bit is not in verse. For instance, I find this extraordinarily kind of modern thinking, but there's only one character in the whole of Shakespeare who never speaks in verse. And that character is Iago from Othello.
Okay. I don't
Because
know. I don't know it so
so
well. Yeah.
Othello is a story about a Moor, a black man who has leadership in a white community, who and Iago is the man who hates him and has no understanding of why he hates. I hate the Moor, he says several times in the play, because he brings about his own destruction. And at the end of the play, when when Othello and his wife die,
Yes.
and they arrest Iago, and they go, everyone's going, why on earth did you do? Why did you do it? And he can't come up with an explanation. He can't actually. I hate the Moor, and I don't. He's unable to articulate. And so Shakespeare knew that there's no kind of emotional articulation for hating somebody because of the color of their skin. Right, back in the 16th century, that's why I think of Shakespeare as the writer who understood the entirety of the human experience and was able to share it through all the work he did. I'm a great lover of the verse and the rules of the verse, and when those rules are broken, like to be or not to be, that is the question, is actually it's breaking iambic pentameter, because it's 11 beats, not the 10. So it's boom 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 boom. So it goes to be or not to be, that is the question. And what it does is it then launches the actor into the rest of that piece that comes with it. So it's almost like you're completely out of control, which of course the character is completely out of control.
Right.
To be or not to be, they're deciding the biggest question of all: shall I carry on living or shall I end it all? And so it's right that you should play it like that. And when I hear a lot of modern actors adding in a lot of naturalistic pausing, to be or not to be, I remember I once, in a beautiful town of Montalcino in Tuscany, I worked with an Italian actor on this very speech, and he was wearing a T-shirt that said "Pump it up," and then he stood on the stage and he went, "Essere e non essere." And I said, he's got it right with the T-shirt because he was busy pumping up the speech rather than actually doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's
Yeah, I
so
do.
simple if you just let the text do the work for you. Now I'm getting back into being an acting teacher. So it's kind of understanding your own relationship to your heart and letting
Right.
that dictate how you play it, and then it becomes much simpler. And I've always believed lots of children, lots of teenagers in particular, get to hate Shakespeare because it's being taught by somebody who doesn't understand that the moment you speak it simply, it stops being difficult language.
Right, right. Yeah, I was probably one of those students that didn't enjoy it, I have to say, but since regret that I didn't. Uh, do you have a favorite play of Shakespeare's? Like, is there any one that you
I
prefer?
suppose Hamlet is the one that I've studied the most,
Mm,
and it's I haven't played it on a stage, but I think it's fascinating that Hamlet is a play that people will go and see 20, 30 times just to
mm,
see how somebody different would do it. I sometimes meet people going, "What are you?" I'm a bit of a movie buff, particularly a classic movie buff, and people say, "Well, you're watching a film a second time. Why would you do that?" And I know that people who love Shakespeare will come and go, "Oh, David Tennant's doing Hamlet. Oh, Benedict Cumberbatch is doing
mm,
Hamlet, or Kevin Kline's doing Hamlet, or
yeah,
whoever it is." They'll go and see people saying those same words, telling the same story
mm,
again and again and again, just to see how those words come out of somebody else. And which means it's not really about the words; it's about the person who's
yeah,
saying it,
very true.
which is also true about everything my clients go
Yeah,
through.
very,
Whether whether you're seeking a vice presidentship in a company, or you're an entrepreneur trying to get your message out there. Well, your message is probably a similar message to a lot of other people's messages.
mm,
And when
mm,
people are going to choose you because of who you are, not about, the technicalities of what you're saying.
what you're saying, yeah. Before we jump into the business side, I'm sure our listeners would probably love to hear a little bit about your backstory. So
Yes.
maybe what got you into acting, what got you out of acting. Maybe if you would start there and we'll build from that.
As a teenager, it wasn't the love of art.
Hmm.
There was a famous bank robber in the US who, when he was caught, and they were questioning, going, why do you rob banks? And he said, because that's where the money is. And so I went to youth theatre when I was about 15 because that's where the girls were at, essentially. And it became, I wasn't particularly sporty at all. And so being able to entertain, being able to do voices, being able to show a skill off in rehearsal or on a stage was the first time that I became aware that women started to be attracted to me. So
Mm,
so then I thought, I'm going to stick around here. This is fun. I get to entertain, and people, and then you get the bug of the fact that people will applaud,
right, right.
you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and so Laurence Olivier said there's only three reasons that people go into acting, and they are look at me, and look at me. And there's certainly some truth in that because typically actors
Yes.
are introverts who mask their introversion through extroversion. Now, actors do it in the form of extroversion by being somebody else.
Mm,
I mean, often, if we're going to go into the psychology of it, actors are actors because they're not happy with who they are and they actively want to be
Right.
somebody else. And I know that experience from being at drama school. And I came down to London in 1990. I was born in Edinburgh, and so I was raised in Scotland, and I did a lot of youth theatre there. Had a great time doing it, and then I applied for drama college, and Guildhall School of Music and Drama took me in the autumn of 1990, and you know. It was major because I was like moving away from home and being in a new city. Guildhall was then like the one of the top three conservatoire trainings in the world.
Mm.
So it was the level at which I was playing in that space in terms of the expertise that I got was absolutely phenomenal. Now, I was there at the same time and with Daniel Craig, Ewan McGregor. So technically, I know both James Bond and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's what I was just going to say. For the people that don't know Daniel Craig by name, 007. For the people that
Yes,
don't know Ewan McGregor by name, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then I think you're also there with Damian Lewis, right?
I was indeed. Damien was in my year. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely lovely man, and we were very fond of each other. I used to share a flat with Ewan McGregor for about six months. We had not a bed sit, but we had like a sort of actor's house in North London
I can
together.
imagine. Yeah.
So it was a great deal of fun, and unlike a lot of drama schools around the world have like a single process that they teach. Like RADA in London teaches look, move, speak. That's their system. They teach look, move, speak, and so most drama schools have their own system that they teach. But
Mm.
Guildhall didn't. Guildhall went, we're going to show you everything. We're going to show you how they do it in India. We're going to show you how they do it in Japan. We're going to show you how they do it in Russia. We're going to show you how they do it in America. We're going to show you our own tradition. So the process and it was very much a case of, well, you choose what resonates with you. And for me, I think one of my greatest teacher, hero, mentors, Patsy Rodenberg, who's I still say is the world's #1 voice coach. I had a 3-year voice training with her. We spent at least 2 years focusing on the voice and Shakespeare as well, which is why I can talk as I do about Shakespeare. And she helped me. In that point, there's a point in life that happens for a lot of people where you kind of have to stare in the mirror and go, do I like what I see? And then because drama college kind of takes you apart and then allows you to build yourself back with some control for what you choose to be, so that you've got flexibility. I call it like often if you start a car in first gear, it's going to stall, right? You need to be able to know what your own neutral is to be able to start a car and move it forward with any skill. And many of us are not in neutral when we're going through life, which means that we're betraying ourselves, maybe through like facial tics, or maybe through posture that shows off a lack of confidence as one walks into a room, or maybe not having access to the full range of your voice, so it's difficult to listen to you. All of these things come from a position of not being neutral, and that limits your potential for being valuable in whatever it is you do. And of course, you know, as an actor, if you want to play a part that is not you, then, well, you have to be in neutral. Otherwise, who you are will, you know, when you see actors and you think, well, they're always the same. And that's because they're not in neutral. They're just letting their own persona come out. But I'd say if you're not an actor, there's still a huge amount of value in moving into neutral in order to find out, who do I need to be? What bits of me do I need to develop in order that, you know, those who are responsible for paying me, whether that be a boss or clients, see the value, see the potential for value that means that I can make a bigger difference in whatever it is I'm doing.
Mm. It's
all
nice, a
linked
nice
together.
picture. Right.
Yes. And I guess, you know, I did a lot of time coming out of drama college. I ran my own theatre company, and I pretty much ran it into the ground because I knew absolutely nothing about money at that point. And in fact, at that point in my life, most actors, apart from the ones who are making money, the majority of actors have the worst mindset around money that I have ever come across. You know, I'd say actors are the only people who would pay money to sit in a theatre to watch someone else play a part that they went up for but didn't get, and then harumph for about 3 hours in the theatre audience going, I could have done that. You know, it's like there's it's the only it's the only methodology of work where people will work for free in the vague hope that they might get paid at some point later on. And so that makes them typically really agreeable, and you know, and often if people who are really agreeable, really and far too agreeable, will do a real slingshot into resentment. They'll be so agreeable, and then when they don't get that level of agreeable back from bosses or from the people they're talking to about their service, then they'll become resentful. It's like a huge slingshot. It's like you stretch the elastic band of agreeableness by being so agreeable and so open and so ready that when it doesn't get returned, you go straight into, well, you know, screw them.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible place to be. So actually, and the science tells us that women are typically significantly more agreeable than men.
Right.
At least 20% more agreeable than men, which is why, particularly in the corporate world, women are often left resentful by men who are abusing their willingness to do stuff. And that's a terrible place to be, because resentfulness you can do nothing with in terms of advancing yourself. You have to let go of that.
Well, that's a great segue into your business and what you're doing at the moment. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind just speaking to the company, speak to Shine International. What is it that
Yes.
you do within that organization? How do you help the people you help?
I help people use words to make a huge profit. Now, that might be employees in an organization. I was named one of the top 40 for 40, and that was the hashtag that women in banking and finance used. In 2020, they gave me an award naming me one of the top 40 influencers for women in the banking space globally. So where I have a very good track record is helping women in the banking and finance space get themselves promoted, and adding, on average, with the promotions that these women have achieved, 30 to 40% extra in the income yearly. That's what we're aiming at when I'm working with these employees. Now, it's not exclusively women, but it is predominantly women who come to me and say, David, it's too hard. I'm stuck. I can't sleep because of all the reorganizations, and I'm watching banks let 12,000 people go, and they're, moving offices, and I'm worried that I'm going to be one of the people they choose, or I don't have visibility in the right space, so I'm very concerned. And we go, okay, let's change something about that. So we work on lifting their presence and their visibility and the perception of credibility around them through, one, posture, two, voice, three, energy, so that we've got their impact sorted. And then once we got the impact sorted, then we start working on the influence. So I say impact is about what happens when you're in the room, and influence is about what happens when you're outside of it.
Right.
Influence is what happens when you... Sorry, Wayne.
Please go. No, I was just going to ask you, was there a catalyst that led your business to focus mainly on the women? I can see on your website, you make a lot of great quotes and statistics around how women are less, let's say, encouraged or supported in the workforce. But I'm just wondering, was there a catalyst that brought you to that point?
Yeah, and funnily enough, I was working with a brilliant business mentor, and I used to be a student at Industry Rockstar, which is run by Kane and Alessia Minkus, and I used to work on their sales teams. I used to go out to Switzerland and work on their sales teams. I learned so much just from watching and listening to them do their thing, and I kind of, they had me do like an audit on the clients that I was working with in terms of who gets the best results, who pays most easily, who shows up early, and it was always the women. I thought that's interesting, and then I noticed that the women I was working with were getting results much more quickly than the men I were working with. And I thought that's interesting, because with some of the men I'm working with, I'm having these conversations where the client's actually trying to be right all the time.
Okay.
They're like, I'd like you to do this. And they go, well, I'm not going to be able to do that because I'm da 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 da. And all that's happening is I've said, I'd like you to do this, and it scared them. But what they've done is they've used their intellect very carefully, very cleverly, to be able to reflect back to me a logical reason why they shouldn't do that thing. And so I think it was 1 month I gave this same exercise to every single client that I had. It was about 5 or 6 people at the time, and it's a scary exercise. It's a Silicon Valley exercise called paper clipping. I don't know if you've come across it before. It's not essentially you take a paper clip and you walk out on the street and you start conversations with people with the intention that you will swap this paper clip for something of equal or greater value with the person that you're talking to. So it's a sales exercise.
Yes.
And it's also a self-selling exercise because it's got nothing to do with the paperclip. People think, oh, who's going to buy a paperclip? Well, no one, unless you yourself make yourself an attractive personality to play this game with. And all the women I worked with did the exercise, no matter how scared they were. They said, this is really scary. You want me to walk out onto the street and do this thing? I said, yes, I do. I'd love you to do it for 90 minutes. 90 minutes? Yes. And then I want you to tell me what it is you come back with. Even if you take the paperclip out on to the street and you don't talk to anyone for 90 minutes, you're learning a huge amount about yourself and where you're at. Yeah. And to have that thing of Well, this is terrifying because one of the biggest fears that human beings have is being rejected by other human beings.
Mm.
The irony being why people love to stay on social media is because you often don't have to deal with being rejected. You know, we post in the hope of the likes and the comments. We're not having to deal with the hundreds of thousands of people who are just scrolling past us, rejecting us. But if we have a friend of mine recently said we live in a society now where we talk more with our thumbs than we do with our voice. And the power of speaking to people is the courage you get by risking that. You go, hey, can I talk to you? And someone goes, no. And then you go, oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I'm still alive. That didn't kill me to talk to someone. Okay, great. Now get on the phone to your boss and start. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now demand a meeting. Now speak up in this boardroom. Oh, okay, there we go. Because the more you learn, the more your unconscious mind goes, this isn't going to kill me. Your unconscious mind is interested in being alive. That's it. It's got two different positions, alive or dead. And as long as you're not dead, you're doing well, right? So the unconscious mind will put a human being through hell. It's really nasty, the unconscious mind. It's really selfish. It steals oxygen. It steals oxygen from the front of your brain if it thinks you're in danger. So you can't think. You can't think with any dexterity at all. You've only got, shall I run? Shall I hit them? Shall I pretend I'm dead? Those are the only three options when the unconscious mind is in charge. And the unconscious mind will steal oxygen from your muscles if it feels that it needs to. It just looks after itself. It doesn't care how you feel. So it'll make you feel like hell, emotionally when it takes all that oxygen from the frontal lobe. It'll make you visualize the worst, most horrible things happening to you. If you've ever been to a job interview and imagine all those thoughts that people have as they're waiting to go in. Oh, don't do this, don't do this. Oh God, it'd be awful if this happened. And what happens is that the brain goes, oh, well, they're concentrating on it so much, so I'll give it to them.
Right.
Because you can't articulate a negative. In the brain cannot articulate a negative. It can only articulate positively. So when you say to your own mind, don't screw up, your own mind can't hear the don't. So your own unconscious mind goes, screw up, no worries, here you go. Oh God, and I did that terrible thing in the interview, or I did that thing on the stage, or I completely dried up. Gosh, when I was speaking, or I couldn't think of a thing to say. Yep, there you go. That's that unconscious mind taking over and giving you what it believes you're looking for. And so the focus of particularly the posture work at the beginning of Posture Voice Energy is about helping anyone find a neutral position so you can undo all of that stuff that's happening in your body. Because again, the unconscious mind forces the breath to be shallow, forces the heart rate up, takes the oxygen away from the frontal lobe of the brain. So I use a technique that I learned whilst I was at drama college, named the Alexander technique, which is a form of physical release of tension, mainly tension associated with the spine. And I now work with the lady who taught me whilst I was at drama college is now available to my clients. Amazing, gorgeous lady named Katya Benjamin, who's a the Alexander technique practitioner at RADA in London. But, you know, I rang her about 4 years ago and said, do you know anyone who's an Alexander teacher who might want to work with my company? And she went, sure, I'll do it. And I went, oh, because I was so pleased. Yes, because all of these things, if you can release that tension, you can release yourself physically, release your breath, release your heart. That means that the unconscious mind will release that oxygen, and you can be in those situations which are real tests of courage for you, and you can still think.
I'm just trying to visualize while you're talking, David. We see from time to time, we'll see a drama class on TV, and we see people performing strange movements and acting in certain ways.
Yes.
Is that part of this posture you're talking about?
It doesn't need to be as strange. It is a little left field because people, I think, are much more used to discussing intellectual ideas rather than physical ideas. So, for instance, there are 3 different levels of energy that any human being can be in at any time. I call them circles of energy that we emanate outwards into the world. And only one of those 3 circles of energy is a state of presence, like being able to draw other people towards you, having an energy that emanates outwards. Okay. Now, because the majority of people don't know what those 3 states are, it's difficult for them to be in a state of presence. Right? So the first circle of energy is the introvert state. And it's a backwards energy. It's a towards me energy. It's where we go when we want to talk to ourselves. And when you're in that state, it's almost like it's the flight aspect of fight or flight. It's like a desire to be anywhere else but here right now. You know, and I see it all the time at business networking. Yeah. You know, and then we, again, 21st century, because most of us have smartphones, we can be in that first circle and not take any risks of rejection. You know, I'll just hide on my phone because nobody's talking to me. Yeah. And then if I can jump to the third circle of energy, which I call the convincing state, where we're just too much. We're just too far out there. We're just too loud. We actually repel people. Whoa, what's that? You know, we want it too much. This is a real thing with salespeople, particularly salespeople who might not be doing too well at what they're doing. They become desperate. They have what people call money breath. They try too hard, and what it does is the energy of trying too hard is quite repellent to other people. And in between that, there's a position which is called second circle. And second circle is the position of presence. Okay. So it's like you have to be present in yourself in order to have presence for others. So you have to have a presence in your own body. It has to be a level of calm in order that your energy can resonate outwards as being someone it's safe to be with. Oh, they're chilled, they're relaxed, I'll be with them. You know, people think that presence and charisma is something magical that people have or they don't have. And it's just not true. And anyone, once they can find how to do this, and I've worked with a lot of clients, a lot of women who have never ever been in second circle in their lives, who are constantly either in first or third. Particularly a lot of female entrepreneurs, actually. Kind of going here, there, always being like and I help them find that second circle, and they're like, I've never been like this in my life. Oh, this is nice, you know. And then if you can approach any of the stuff that's going on outside of your comfort zone whilst maintaining that state of presence, then you become charismatic for the people who you are with. And you then end up drawing them in towards you. They choose to come towards you and that energy. You know, and if anyone is in the sales game, or anyone is listening is running their own business, this is absolutely the key to any sale that is, you know, what people call a high ticket offer. You know, it's like not for stuff that's £10, but if you're selling something that's 5,000 or
Yeah.
10,000, I'd say anything over £1,000, it's going. People need to feel I am safe with you, not I am safe with your service, or I'm safe with your product. I am safe with you, and you're going to look after me.
Right. So for those people that you're referring to, how do they tell when they're in that second circle? Like, is there some indicator that they can
Yes,
identify through?
yes. You will be breathing in the stomach and not the chest.
Hmm.
That's the indicator, because if you're breathing in the stomach, it's a longer, slower breath, and it brings your heart rate down. And your unconscious mind, the hypothalamus, the base of the spine, is the first bit of the brain to grow in when you're growing as a baby inside your mum's tongue. And that's why it has so much power over us, because it can remember stuff that happened in the womb. Like even now, it can remember stuff. We don't consciously remember it, but it can remember stuff, and so it can get triggered and make us scared of things that we have no idea why we're scared of it. And the only way to undo it is through taking the physical action of releasing your breath. So normally with a client, I'll do the first session of introducing the idea and getting them into second circle, and then I'll send them off to see Katya, and she'll move them through the Alexander technique bases until being in that state of presence is their baseline state. You know, it takes 4 to 6 weeks of little but often practice to create a new habit. And so if you show your own body and your own brain, this is how I breathe now, like a little bit, 2 minutes tops a day for 4 to 6 weeks. At the end of that 6 weeks, your body and your brain will go, this is how I breathe now. And they'll let go of the old habit. Essentially, it's exactly what I did when I came down to London. And I thought I was terribly interesting, Wayne, but I really wasn't. I was kind of, quite hunched up, and I thought, oh, I'm a troubled poet, and putting on this bit of an act that actually was not me in neutral at all. When I come back to what I said about sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, do I like what I see? And you go, well, actually, for me, looking in the mirror and going, actually, what I'm presenting to the world isn't authentically me.
Right. Yeah,
But actually, so why the heck am I not doing that? Because I don't dislike, who I am really. It's almost like in Jungian terms, embracing the what Carl Jung calls the shadow, of kind of understanding the wholeness of yourself and understanding what your potential in the world is. If you embrace the wholeness of who you are, it's really empowering. Even the not very nice bits. It's kind of like, because actually, like I said earlier, being far too agreeable will make you really resentful. And what'll happen is the nasty bits of you will come out in a nasty way. Whereas lots of people who aren't too agreeable, and I've just worked with a client who's a lawyer, and he's a lovely bloke. I've known him for a good 4 years, and his reputation within the organization is David's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy. Well, nice guys don't get to make partner,
Yes.
right? And so actually, not only is he doing himself a disservice by having that reputation, he's doing a disservice for everyone he can serve, but who eventually goes to someone else because he's the nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the good news is since we started working together, he closed, I got a recording yesterday. I said, I want you to say this on video. He closed a deal that was worth 10 times the investment he made in working with me, using, and specifically, the techniques that I taught him that Wednesday, and he closed it on the Friday. So it's like you do that consistently, and his close rate has since we started, his close rate in the organization has gone from 30% to 60%. And when you do that, people are going to start noticing, well, there's a new level of value that you're providing into this organization. So that's going to be reflected in bonuses, that's going to be reflected in opportunities, that's going to be reflected in how people talk about him when he's not there. And that, which is what I mean about influence being about what's happening when you're not in. Who's talking about you? Who's going, well, do you know who this would be perfect to take to? Wayne. Oh yeah, Wayne, yeah, brilliant idea. Let's take it to him because we know he'll be amazing at dealing with this.
You have a couple of programs that I saw. One is called the World-Class Profit Speaker, and the other one I
Yes.
think is Find Your Personal Power. So do both of those programs incorporate what you've just explained?
Yes, so the personal power, which I now think of it more as a sort of toolkit for influencers, as in if you and it. The world-class profit speaker is very much for people who want to use speaking as a way to make money.
Right.
So I think of it as profit speaking rather than public speaking. So public speaking is part of it, and becoming really good at public speaking and being very comfortable on a stage is part of it, most definitely. But what most people miss out is, how do you turn this into money? How do you weave an offer into your signature presentation so that you can move the right people towards you? Now, I've worked with some of the best stage closers in the world. Kane Minkus is the mentor I mentioned earlier, is one of the top 5 globally. So you can bet I was taking notes when I was working with him. And so what we do is once we've created the signature piece, we then weave the offer in so that you can move the right people in the audience who are ready to buy into a really high qualified sales call. So I'm not talking about demanding money in the room, but making what I call a soft offer, which is getting people on the phone to you one-to-one, where you can really quickly move to exchange of money. And that will happen quickly because of all of the work you did on the stage that made that audience member feel safe.
Right.
Because, my goodness, when someone says, sure, this is my credit card number, they have to feel safe, right? To be able to give you 5,000, 13,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever it is, they have to feel safe to be able to go, right, good. And are you happy to do that now? Yes. You can get there really quickly if you're authentic and generous on the stage and you weave in an attractive offer to the people in the room. And when people first come to me and they're talking about speaking, often their concerns are about themselves. And actually, once they realize that presenting is almost entirely nothing to do with them, it's about just being being yourself more skillfully I call speaking being yourself more, because when you're in front of audiences, the rules of engagement are slightly different, and you have to shift up the energy for the sake of the entirety of the audience. You know, if you've got 50 people in the room over 8, 9 different rows, your energy has to reach the back row.
Right.
So you're going to have to shift your energy up and reveal more. Be you more. You can do that authentically and with ease. Then what you're going to do is you're going to make that audience feel like this. I'm totally in safe hands here. I can relax. I can listen.
Yes.
I can learn. And through that, you can weave the idea of, actually, I'd quite like to talk to this chap because I would like some of the outcomes he's just outlined to me, or she's just outlined to me. Then you go, well, let's get on the phone together. It's a no-brainer to do it then. And so you've done all this advanced work. And the other thing is imagine if you had 50 of your perfect people to talk to in front of you in a theatre, who you wanted to move into a closer relationship with you. And you can do all that in 1 hour instead of having 50 hour-long one-to-ones with people. That's an enormous leverage of time.
For sure.
For anyone who's in the entrepreneurial.
I can imagine. I've often been curious, how do actors, and I know this is digressing a little bit, but how do actors remember their lines? Is there some technique within the mind that helps you to remember those lines? Like I was
It's
thinking
interesting. They never teach it. Do you know what I mean? They make a presumption that you can do it. So you don't get any classes on line learning. I used to build up a sentence and I'd learn lines by saying them out loud.
Right.
But I wouldn't, and I would go, so I'd build up a sentence. I go to be, to be or not, you know, until I could just do I could do the whole sentence, and then just let it flow. Because there's a point, you begin by placing the lines in here as an actor, and that's fine, but you're always kind of searching for them. And then there's a process where they move from here right down into your gut.
Okay.
And it's fun because then, as you're rehearsing, and most theatre productions in the Western world are like rehearsed for about 3 weeks. I mean, if you look at some of the schools in the rest of the world, they take, you know, I remember we had at Guildhall a very close relationship with Gitis in Moscow, some of the greatest teachers I've ever had there. And but they'd climb into a loft space for 3 years to look at a play before they brought it out, you know. But you're 3 weeks in a rehearsal room, then, and you've got to take the lines from here and stick them in, you know, your gut. Then there's a short time you kind of lose them when they're in transition. But the funny thing about when the lines are actually deep in your gut is you don't need to search for them. They just come at the right time. Which feels magical when you've kind of got that, and then you've got the trust and the faith that they will be there, that you don't have to go looking for them. But that takes a little bit of work and a little bit of rehearsal. You know, I was a great believer when I was a theatre director and I ran my own company. That's when I understood that everyone needs something different. That when you're on the stage, you can't see the whole picture because you're on the stage. So I noticed, oh look, there's my friend Sean, and he's doing an amazing performance, but he's not standing in light, so it's all going to waste. So I can be the person who can shine the light and go, hey, Sean, can you just take one step forward? Brilliant. Now everyone's going to see as you're doing this amazing performance. And that also is why I feel I've got a real skill when it comes to going into organizations for people, because many, particularly employees, I feel, because you're on stage, because you're in it, you can't see the whole picture. So often they'll come to me with going, well, none of the management like me, or my boss hates me, or my boss won't do that. They'll have created a story in their own head around why things are happening, most of which is actually untrue. Most of which these men or these people are not thinking the things that they think that they are thinking.
Yes.
And so I can shine the light from the auditorium because I'm not part of that organization.
Mhm, mhm.
I can say, this is what's really happening. So the way to respond to it is this. Just to get back to, yes, I know you are, I apologize, I've segued, but it's like, learning lines is about getting them into your gut. Now, yes, I know I was going to make this point. I always, when I was working as a theatre director, would get people to learn their lines before starting rehearsals.
Okay.
Because when people learn their lines during rehearsals, they get linked to where they're saying their lines from.
Mm, mm.
And the thing is, if you go, okay, when I say this line, I'm next to the telephone, but one night the telephone isn't there, then they go, oh God, something's wrong. I can't remember my line. I'm a great believer in people having flexibility to be able to deal with whatever might be thrown. The beauty of theatre is it's different every night. What I said
Yes.
about Hamlet and people going back to Hamlet, because it's going to be different if Damian Lewis does it, or Ray Fiennes does it. It's going to be different, right?
Mm.
Because of the actor's energy. So, and I remember I was working with an amazing Japanese director named Yukio Ninagawa, who made these absolutely stunningly beautiful Shakespeare adaptations that you bring to the Edinburgh Festival. And he did this wonderful play with the Royal Shakespeare Company, I think it was, and it starred Alan Rickman. And I went to see it about 5 times. It was extraordinary. And I was learning directing at the time, and I was, I'd recently met Alan Rickman through one of my teachers at drama college. So I went to see this play, and the play ended with Alan Rickman's character being stabbed, and then he has about a 10-minute monologue, sort of dying scene. An extraordinary thing, completely different every night that I saw it. And then I was told that every night all of the crew would line the lighting gig to watch the end of the play, which was almost completely unheard of, like the lighting crew being interested in what was going on stage, but they'd line up that on the lighting rig to watch this last scene of the play every night, because it was, the words would be the same, but every night was completely different, because and it was electric. It was for them, it was the most electric thing they'd ever seen. And I remember being absolutely enthralled by each moment when I went to see it, the 5 times that I saw it, like like a fanboy, I think at the time. But it's extraordinary how you can take something and make it a signature of yours, and yet recreate every time rather than repeat. And that's the beauty of acting in theatre.
Mm. That's bringing yourself back to neutral and recreating yourself, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Very much. You've written a bestseller. Is there anything in
Yes.
the pipeline that's coming out in the next year or two? Another program, another book? Do you have anything in mind?
Well, now I'm working, now that my publisher is my business partner. My
Okay.
publisher, David Gill Cristobal, he beautifully mentored me through the process of writing the book uh, and writing the book myself, and the book is called Be Seen, Be Heard, Get Paid What You're Worth. And I, it was it was like me sharing the whole process, what it would be like to work with me for 6 months
Okay.
in written form, and uh, and then we launched it. And then I said, "How about you join me in this company, and how about we offer books to people as well?" Which is why I said at the beginning, I help people use words, both the spoken word and the written word,
Mm.
to make a huge profit. Now, my book has brought me about 90,000 in the past 12 months into the business. So my book has been the greatest business card that I've ever had.
Mm.
And so we want to do the same for other people. So I'm not working on a book at the moment, but I will be soon. But what I want to get out there is doing books, doing experts books for other people, and encouraging them, again, being authentic, to put it all on paper,
Mm.
you know, and then create something that brings in hopefully even more than 90 grand to them and their business, and show them how to make that happen. But we even show people how to get their investment back before the book's published.
Mm. Very good.
So now that I'm in both the publishing game and the speaking game, we talk speak to shine. We're looking to use books and the speaking game. Of course, the other thing about the speaking game, of course, is you can create amazing video assets out of everything you
Yes.
do, which
Yeah.
then become credibility pieces. And some of my clients have gone and done TEDx appearances whilst we're working together.
Mm.
Yeah. So if you think about, it's all about creating assets that massively lift your credibility, so that there are more people in different rooms going, "Oh, do you know who we should get in for this? Wayne," or do you know, whoever whoever we're working with. Is
Mm.
we want them to make money, and to make their money back as quickly as possible,
Right. Right.
so that they're in a state of profit using these assets.
Yeah. Great concept. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that have an interest. I'm conscious of the time, David. So
Is Oh yeah, I could talk for hours, Wayne. So you're going to have to stop me.
no, it's
Oh
okay.
yes.
Is there any final or closing comment any subject we haven't touched on that you really would like the listeners to hear?
I think I think we've touched on the important stuff. I think
Mm.
really, uh,
Okay.
that this is, and what I'll go back to. I know that acting is being somebody else, and I think that people often think, well, it's all right for you because you're an actor, David. But actually, I'm not acting. I'm not being someone else. I'm being me. I'm sharing me and the skill that I now have,
Mm.
and the skill that I share with people is how to be themselves
Right.
more,
Yeah,
and
nice.
be themselves more confidently in situations where they might have shied away from.
Mm. Where
You
can
know, and get
people where can people go and find you? Where can they connect with you?
So I have two websites. One is for entrepreneurs and one is for employees. There's davidroylance.com,
Hmm.
which is more for employees, and speaktoshine.uk, which is more for the entrepreneurs. I have recorded last year whilst I was doing a gig at the University of Glasgow, and I recorded a 25-minute piece on beginning the art of presentation. So it's a free webinar that I hold online. It's speaktoshine.uk/free dash webinar. I think it is. I can send you the link for that. It's like it's half an hour of free coaching essentially, and if people want that, then they're very welcome to have it. They have to give us their name and email address, and then they get access to it. And if it's appropriate, they're very welcome to spend some time. Like I'll give everyone 30 minutes for free on a Zoom call, and we won't. It won't be a sales call. It'll be a 30-minute coaching piece, and if it's appropriate, we'll talk about working together. If it's not appropriate, we won't talk about working together. So it's an absolutely no obligation, 30 minutes. What's going on for you? How can I help? Call. You know, for everyone who wants to make more money, the more generous you are with your energy, the more likely you are to make money.
Yeah, I like that, and it's probably a nice place to finish. David, it's been a delight. I have to say, I can't resist. I opened with Romeo, so here's my best portrayal of Juliet. Good night. Good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well done.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.